Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the show. John Henry Soto here with you, as always, with our laughing, giggling George Batista. And of course, giggles are contagious, as we all know.
Whew.
We are going to talk about taking the high road today, which,
We're
as
trying
some of,
to.
yeah, trying to take the high road. As some of you know, it's not always the easiest move. Usually it feels like the exact opposite in the moment, but everything in you might want to react, to clap back, or prove a point. But I've learned that reacting out of emotion always creates more noise and not more clarity. So why bother creating more noise? Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in, George.
Thank you, sir.
Hope you're doing well. We were talking about this. I don't remember why, but I think it had to do with every once in a while we get people on our show on our log in and they say things, social media, especially for me on my social medias. I get people saying a lot of not nice things about me, about my activities, my
That's
work.
just me.
Yeah, George is just George that they just
That's just me saying those
yeah,
things.
that's just George saying, and it's like, George, please, how did you get this number? Um, and so you always want to take the high road. And for the most part, George and I have a very strict rule on this show. When somebody makes a comment, if it's a negative comment, we don't respond to it, acknowledge it. It doesn't. I do that with my social media stuff. Now, every once in a while, somebody will say something that's hilarious. Now, yes, it's an insult, but it's a funny one. So I usually can throw back. I'm pretty good with the back and forth. I can hit people pretty hard. I'm kind of have a kind of a sharp tongue, as George can tell you growing up.
Yes.
And I can, I figure the way growing up, when you grow up, I grew up with bullies, right? And I think growing up with bullies is healthy because I grew up tough. I had to have thick skin. I was a short guy in the Bronx. I had to learn how to take my lumps, but I also taught me how to react to things. And I remember the movie eight was it M&M's is it 8 miles or something
eight,
like that?
8 miles. Yeah,
8 inches.
8 miles.
8 miles. 8 inches is the other movie. Um, that's
Yeah.
another. You know what? I'm not gonna go into that film. Okay, I was very young. I needed the money. Um, so, but in that film, I remember Eminem. He took his own limitations and weaknesses and used them in his rap to knock the other guy.
Right.
And the other guy took away all his ammunition. He had nothing else. So I used to do that because you figure I'm short, I wear glasses, I don't know, and I'm short, I guess. Um, and I don't know, my face, my nose, my ear, whatever they're holding on to as an insult. I thought, okay, if that's what they have, then I know because I can deal with that stuff, right? Let me go above this and let me see how quickly I can turn on a dime back at them. And I became pretty good at that. So I didn't really pull in a lot of insults after a certain period, after people started kind of realizing I was an asshole and had a sharp tongue. So, but it gave me an ability to kind of defend myself basically, in a lot of different circumstances. And even in business, when you're dealing with somebody that's harsh in business, you don't have to be harsh, right? But you can be like, sir, I don't think it's appropriate that you talk to me that way. I don't understand what, and so people are sort of like, why is he being so forceful but yet
Right.
polite? And people don't like that, so bro Charlie Lewis says, outsmart the ignorance. Boom.
Yes.
That's
Hundred
exactly what
percent.
I'm saying, Charlie. That's exactly right. Good evening. Welcome in. So that's kind of the growing up in the Bronx, and you had to kind of like learn how to sustain and survive with that type. So now when we get that kind of hate coming back at us here on social or during one of our shows or whatever, you know, it, our rule is that we don't interact if it's like just like a nasty thing, like a dumb thing. You got to be creative. You know what I mean? Like you say, yeah, you're stupid. Oh, shut up, nobody's listening. I'm like, really? That's what you came out, that's what you actually writing in your mother's basement. That's what you're actually, that's the best you can come up with. So
Right.
it was a certain level of that. And so, but taking the high road was the conversation that George and I were talking about last week. And we thought, why don't we do a show on that, on taking the high road, you know?
Do you think, well, when you were young, the
Right,
Jedi mind trick, yeah, basically.
exactly.
Okay. So that was kind of like, because I'm just wondering when you were younger, and again, John and I were in like the same school and everything. He was just a
Few
few
years
years
older.
older than me. So, but, and you always hung out with a whole bunch of guys. But
I was a legend.
yeah, you were a legend, yes. Um, but that was kind of like your, I guess, your way of like your defense mechanism in a way of how to turn things around against them, because
Sure,
everybody who was,
sure.
and
Because I mean,
and I
yeah,
think that was also the reason why I used to tell me this all the time, that these guys who used to hang out with, who were tough guys or whatever, and even after school, they always respected you, right?
yeah. I mean, I got a lot of that. I think it was because I wasn't afraid, but I also wasn't like confrontational where I wanted to fight. I'm a little
Right,
guy. I'm not gonna go fight some big dude. You know what I mean? I got
right,
no interest in that. I know how the outcome is gonna be. So I just wouldn't do that. But I think it's like exactly what Bro Charlie Lewis Jr. said right there. It's sort of like it is like a Jedi mind trick. It's like
right.
I'll use the jokes, I'll use defense mechanisms, and insecurities run high when you're at that age. When you're in your
Yeah,
teens, and the expression is tall, dark, and handsome. So being short, not dark, not handsome was like, okay, well, that I have all that going against me. So
right.
once I can confront that part of myself and be like, okay, I'm dealing with that, and that is what they have, and I think that's all they have.
Yes,
They're not smarter than me, and that's why I was, I wouldn't even say respected. It might be a certain level of respect, but it was also just like we can't do anything to him.
right.
We can't. There's just, what are we gonna do? He takes insults very well. you know, he's sharp tongued. He's not gonna do drugs. He doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke. He break dances and plays guitar. I mean, that was like the extent of my thing. So, and I think because I also was kind of a break dancer in the community, and people kind of knew me a little bit, a ghetto celebrity, as I say. Um, that was a little bit also on top of it. But the taking the high road, I wasn't even at the time. I wasn't thinking I was taking the high road. I didn't even know what that expression meant.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I just thought there's a better way of doing this.
Right,
There's
right,
a better way of doing this. Somebody says, "Yeah, you're short. Yeah, shorty." That's very observant.
right.
It's like that's good. I'm glad that and I would go something in that respect. Like, wow, okay, cool. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. My mom came out one day to. I've told this story before on my one up somewhere. My mom came down one day to get me. I was hanging out in the corner, and it probably was late. It was probably maybe like 10:30, 11 o'clock. And she would come down to see where I am, and she'd be like, Tito, Tito, come on, let's go home. So I remember leaving, and then there was about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 dudes just hanging out in the corner, and we were all just chilling. Nobody was doing anything, just hanging. And so my mom came to pick me up. One guy that was there, he's like, "Oh, John's mom, John's in trouble." John's mom picking him up. And I turned around and I was like, "Yeah, at least my mom comes and gets me. Where's your mom? Has anybody seen his mom ever? Like, does your mom even know where you are?" And I'm going up the hill saying this. My mom is on the floor laughing. She's cracking up. Everybody in the corner is like cracking up laughing. It's like, bro, somebody find his mom. His mom don't even care. At least my mom cares. And everybody was laughing. It's that kind of handling. That for me, I at the time I took it. That's sort of like the high road.
Right.
Fall into the plan. Fall into the joke. Admit to the joke.
Yeah.
Embrace the joke, and then hit back using the joke as I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever
Right, right.
that kind of thing. So that's kind of like how I feel like I work it.
It's also a couple of things with that, right? So number one, it's suspending of your ego a little bit, right? Because when ego gets involved, right, that's really the thing, right? Your ego. Well, I'm. How dare you say this
Right,
to me?
respect.
You have to respect me.
Right.
How dare you? You're making me feel bad, and my boom, and ego gets involved, and in the and you also have to not take everything personal, right?
Right.
It's like
That's the challenge.
it is the challenge, right? Because it's like I always tell this, when I was younger, my mother was driving and I was a kid, my mother would curse out everybody who cut her off. And she would, and even when
I
they,
just hear that, it's so funny.
she would even, I always say that even when they didn't cut her off, like they were just trying to merge in or something, she goes, "Go ahead, mother," blah blah blah. But my mother was like that, but my mother was tough. My mother has always been tough all her life, right? But she'd get angry, and I would see this type of thing, but I noticed that when I got older and I was driving and people would cut me off or people would do stupid things, it wouldn't bother me.
Man, dude, I'm so glad you even said this right now because I haven't been a driver for long since living like 4 years and stuff. But man, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it never bothered me. It wasn't, for whatever reason. I didn't, don't wear feelings on the shoulder. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I never took somebody cutting me off personally. I mean, in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's a jerk. Okay, yeah, he's being stupid. Yeah, he or she, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then I move on.
It's so funny that you and I have that viewpoint and we've never really spoke about this. This is actually the first time. But I was talking to someone about that as well. They were like, this is another thing, and I was talking to my wife about this, like getting somewhere, like here in Nashville, we take the interstate. I take the interstate if I'm going somewhere far, an hour away. I'm not going to take the service roads. But if I'm in Nashville and there's an interstate that will get me there 7 minutes earlier, I'm like, you know what? This is rush hour traffic. I'm not going to get on the interstate to save 7 minutes. And sometimes I've made the mistake of saying I'm going to get on the interstate because I want to get there faster. And there's backup because there was an accident and there's blah, blah, blah. And now I am 20 minutes late from where I was going, right? Whereas if I was on the side roads, I can just maneuver around anything that's in front of me. So I was talking to somebody and I remember we were talking about the frustration of drivers and stuff like that. And I remember thinking to myself exactly what you said. I don't think I've really been frustrated by a driver. I don't think I've ever, people will cut off and people will do dumb things and I'll be like, hey, that was dumb. That was dumb, and then a Monday warrior, I'm still singing. I'm still just singing like whatever song was playing on the radio on my playlist. I just keep singing. So it is an interesting thing that, because my mom, my mom was also a tough little lady.
Right.
And we would go out and I don't know what it was, but she would get into arguments with bus drivers sometimes. If she was walking and on the subway or somebody like bumped into her, she would like get upset and start get into a fight. I mean, I had to pull my mom back a couple of times, little lady, but she was tough,
Yeah.
And so you and I just did not, for some reason, that it skipped the generation with us because for me, it's like, it's not important.
Correct. Right.
It's not important.
It's not that important. It really is not
important. That guy that cut me off, yes, danger wise, I got to make sure I'm safe.
Of course.
I'm safe. But if a guy just, I'm like, he's behind me and I'm going too slow for him, even though like it's 45, I'm going 55. It's still not fast enough for him. He wants to go 70. He's going to go around me. He's going to cut right in front of me. Right. Okay. Do it. You want to get to wherever you got. I'm sure where you got to get to is super important, sir.
Right.
I'm sure he's got a lot of things. He doesn't want to miss that episode of Friends you know. And so for me, it's just not that important.
There was a lady. This happened not long ago. Actually, I was driving, and it's one of those things where the light's turning yellow and it's red. So this is
Yeah,
cognitive. Oh, yeah,
yeah, it's
yes.
true. It's true.
So I'm driving, and I'm stopping at the light, and the lady's behind me, and she obviously she wanted to make the right, and I was going straight, but I stopped for the light. She's flipping out behind me. She
She doesn't
wanted me to
realize
she wanted me to run that, because
because
I
she wants to
guess
make it right.
yes, because she's probably late for whatever the case may
That's
be.
on her,
And
right?
she's cursing up a storm, and I'm watching her through the rearview mirror, and I'm like this.
You
and I
gotta wait.
start
You're going straight.
I start laughing. I just start laughing, and she's like like
Yeah,
this. So the light turns green, and I just start going, and she's like, "Come on!"
I've
and then
done
I and
that
then
too.
I do one of these. I just keep going, okay, and then
I
I
know.
move on with my day. Now her
Yeah,
blood pressure is through the roof, right? She's
yeah, for
probably,
no
who
reason.
knows, right, for
For
no
no reason.
reason. Yeah,
And you have to understand. We don't know what she's going through. I get it.
fine, I
You know,
understand that, right?
but
But
you have nothing to do with that. You
exactly,
have nothing to do with whatever stress she has, as horrible as it may be for her. And we pray for her,
of
and we pray
course,
for whatever she's going through. There is no reason why. Like that's another thing. Like like that right. There's two lanes. One is a right on, a right on
yeah,
red,
right,
and you happen to go there. Like sometimes I'll get behind someone who. So there's three cars. That
mhm.
first car stops because they're going. The one in front of me is wants to go left, and the one in front of me, he's flipping out.
Right,
It's
right,
like
exactly.
so he's like there's like him here, and there's like the sidewalk. And there's just a little bit of it. He goes in on the sidewalk
Oh,
just to go
nice.
around to get around this guy, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
bro, are you seriously doing that? Like, you can't wait whatever that light is, like the 2 minutes for the light.
right.
I mean, it's the sad part is that they're they're taking that. They
Yes,
think that you're creating that for them, and they don't realize that not only did they create it, it's with them.
correct.
You
Right,
didn't take it. We're talking about it now as content.
right.
You know,
Exactly.
we're using it as fodder for our own little show here, as entertainment. They are sitting in that, and I went to. She might not want me to say this,
Uh-oh.
but it was my sister. Who
Okay.
I love my sister dearly, my youngest sister. She's amazing. And she's a great mom, great wife, wonderful, wonderful human being. But I went to go visit her in Florida, and I didn't have a car, so she was she picked me up, and she was driving me around, and she's driving somebody, then she went into this tyrant like what the. And we're driving, and I just kept staring at her. She looks at me. She was kind of embarrassed, and she's like, "Sorry, Tito. I just I get." And I was like, "You okay?" It's and it's not the car.
No.
It's not the car. It's something else that's going on. And we talked about it, and she's got stuff. She had stuff going on, and now she's fine. But it was this stuff going on. So it's very, it is a cognitive conversation. Like Charlie said, because you do have to have that understanding. You do have to kind of like almost train your muscle, almost train yourself to like not take those things with you because they don't add any value to
Right.
your existence. They don't move the needle forward to your goals. So if
Right.
you have a goal and you're really, really passionate about your goal, I guarantee you that any successful person, when they've reached the pinnacle of their careers, when you ask them how they did it, they're not going to tell you, well, I got really angry in traffic a lot.
Right.
I lived in the past,
Right.
and I took it out on people that had nothing to do with any problems that I was going in. And
Right.
here I am successful. That you will never hear that, and so you can learn a lot by catching yourself,
Correct.
you know, catching yourself and being like, ooh, hmm, I really want to stab that person in the neck, but I'm not going to because I want to actually not go to prison, and I want to be able to get to my goal and whatever.
It's
But
like those movies or TV shows where you're watching where like the guy's talking to another person and all of a sudden the scene he gets up and he stabs him in the neck
yeah,
like
yeah,
this
yeah.
and
And then
blood and like this, but then it never happened and
right, right. The guy
he's
goes,
just
"Hey,
like
you
this.
listen to me." You're like, "What? What?" Yeah. You go, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah." No, I know. He's just like,
But it's one of those things, and to your point, where when you carry it with you, another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that when you're in that state, and you're right, because number one, you have to come down from that state, right? You're
right,
in that state. Sometimes you're in that, and that could affect your whole day if you let it, because
completely.
now every interaction from that point can
Yeah,
just stack up, right, and keep going on that state, right? But when you're in that state, you don't make decisions. You don't make good decisions at all. Okay,
those
you don't
are
make you don't make
very, very true.
rational
Yeah,
decisions, right? Because you're operating from that other point of view, right? A equals A equals A equals A, right? So you're operating from that part of the mind where you almost become stupid.
yeah,
Where
because the anger, it's the tone
right,
scale that we talk about, 2.0
exactly.
and below. It's like you have no idea. That's why road rage is a thing.
Yes,
It's because when you're at that level, you're not thinking. This is why people say, I don't know, I blacked out.
right,
You
exactly.
did black out. Now,
Yes,
of course, you're still responsible for your actions, so you will go to jail. But
right.
yeah, in a sense, you did black out.
Yeah,
It's the high road. See, the people think that the high road is even being a good wordsmith in a situation. And it's not. The high road is quiet.
mm-hmm.
The high road is a quiet place. It's steady. It's clarity. It can feel like you're letting something slide, but
Yes,
what you're really doing is you're maintaining your peace.
yeah,
You're maintaining your space. You have a long term direction that you want to protect.
correct.
That's really what it's doing, and it is a quiet thing.
Yeah,
It's quiet, and sometimes it's not necessarily even like drive. We're talking about a lot about driving, but in New York City, obviously on the subway, that's another level of it. But in conversations with people that are pushing a button,
mm-hmm.
saying things that maybe just to kind of, I don't
And
know,
some
maybe
people want to push that
they
button.
want to push the button. They want to either make you insecure so
Correct.
they can have a little bit of an upper hand,
Right.
which they never do, pathetic because they're pathetic.
Right.
But they're trying really desperately to do that. And sometimes, and these are the more tragic ones, they don't even know they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They just operate off of that datum, that data, and they don't even know that they're really doing that. And but the quiet in your head is, it's not like you're saying. Now, sometimes, yes, you have to say like, well, hold on, I'm not I'm not going there. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm not having that conversation with you because you don't understand what I'm doing right now.
Right.
You can say that too at some point, but generally, it's for me, it's sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like someone says, "Oh, this is white," and I say, "This is black." No, this is white, and this is black. I know it's black. No, your jacket is white. Oh, you know what? Maybe it is white. I got to check it out. Maybe I'll look into it later.
Yeah.
I know what it is.
Right.
And did I just lose points? No, I gained. Trust me.
Right. Yes.
I gained points. They lost points.
Correct.
One, because I know this is black. That's number one.
Right.
Right. And I'm aware enough to know it's black. But you know what? When I don't know, I will say I don't know.
Right.
Because there's a level of clarity and um awareness that I don't have a problem saying I don't know. Whereas some other people have a problem saying they don't know, and they have to be right.
Right.
They have to be right. So you know what? And then later on, when it comes out, this is black, they'll be like, oh, yeah, no, I know this is black. Yeah, some people told me it was white, but I knew it was black,
Yeah.
and hopefully do in front of them.
Well, there's those people that, like you say, the people that have to be right. Many of them have to be right because that's all they have.
Right.
Meaning that that gives them gives them that feeling of, yes, I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to me, and again, it's over time you learn this stuff and you're like, that's okay.
Yeah,
If
it's
if
empty
that's
calories.
right, exactly.
It's sort of like they're eating junk food.
And it's
And
there's one phrase that I've told, like, when I've got into situations and stuff like that, and I go, okay, that helps you sleep at night. That's good. That's
yeah,
fine, And they're like it's they don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? Because after a while, it comes to a point where I can't, like you said, I can't get to this person. I
you can't.
can't get
You
a
can't.
rise out of this person.
Right.
It's like, again, going back to the bully. After a while, the bully says, I can't deal with this person
Yeah, and they
anymore.
don't. And then they end up just liking you and realize that they're safe.
Right.
They don't even have to behave this way,
Correct.
because it's not going to be effective. So why even bother? And, in a way, it almost, I think, maybe selfishly or maybe arrogantly, it improves their lives.
Do you think, let me ask you this, just as a question. How much of it is how your parents handled it versus what you went through as a kid or in your life somewhere, or maybe
Yeah,
a combination of both?
I would say when I was younger, I would answer that question by saying definitely it's what you went through
Mhm.
as a child and your experiences. As I'm older now and I'm realizing sometimes it could have different effects.
Mhm.
You and I are good examples of we're good fathers.
Right.
I never even met my dad.
Right.
Your dad was a good man, but you had your challenges.
Mhm.
And we didn't take that route. Now, some other people will say, well, why didn't he? Well, he never met his dad, so he never had that father figure, so now he's just a horrible father.
Right.
And so there is a sense of responsibility of the individual. I think a lot of people don't take responsibility for all their actions. They always think that someone else's actions triggered them.
That's the big
And
thing.
now
Yes.
being triggered by someone else is their fault, not your fault, because you
Correct.
can't. You're weak-minded and you can't take it.
Correct.
And that shapes an individual. So I would answer that question just like that.
Yeah.
How much responsibility is that person willing to take? Can you be responsible 100% for everything you get yourself into, every conversation that you have, every time that something happens to you, you are there.
Grant Cardone.
Yes.
He's huge on that.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
He says everything that happens to you, take responsibility for it.
Every single thing.
He goes so far as to say, even if you left the house and you got into an accident, you could have left the house earlier. You know what
Correct.
I'm saying?
Yes.
Right?
That's a hard concept to understand.
Yes.
It's a hard concept to understand, and it's like, but yes, you took you were born. So every action that you take has some reaction. There's
Right.
something happens with it, right?
Right.
And with things like taking the high road, for me is time,
Mhm.
right? Time. How much time am I putting into having to handle this person or have this conversation with this person who I know doesn't have the proper information?
Right.
Is they're talking about something else, and how long do I have to invest in this? I
Mhm.
might invest a little bit more if it's a family member, if it's somebody that I love, or it's a good friend. I may invest a little bit more using a lot of affinity and a lot of communication and helping them understand that. And I would hope that they would do the same for me.
Right.
If I'm not getting it, I would hope they would do the same for me, right? That's one way. But how much time? I read something today where it was time. You can't give time. You can't give extra time to your life. So give life to your time, to the time that you have, something like that.
Mhm.
It was like, so if we can't have more time. We all have the same amount of time, right? But what we can do is use that time and give it more life.
Mhm.
The more you do, the more you live, right?
Right.
So in these conversations, when someone is challenging you, and if you're being challenged, consider it a blessing, because there's a lot of people who are not challenged because nobody thinks they're important enough to be challenged.
Yeah.
You have to be challenged. George is challenged. George does a wellness show about nutrition. He's challenged every show.
Yeah.
Everything he does is challenged because he's on he knows he's right, but he's got a whole other industry that's trying to prove him wrong. Same thing with my situation, right? So if you're being challenged, consider it a blessing. That's number one. Consider it an opportunity for you to use your skills that you've learned. Hopefully, you've taken something, some improvement, something that can actually improve you in life,
Right.
and take it and then start working on it. How can I fix this situation? And it's a blessing, man. The more you get challenged, the more you're living, the more you're kind of like, oh, cool. All right. Oh, you can't do this. I wonder why I can't do that. Let me try to see if I can figure this out,
Right.
and there's a certain life to that, and there's a certain livingness that gets, it has been squashed in the last, I would say, 25 years, because young people, I hate to say young people nowadays, but I love young people. I think they're doing some great things right now. Even Gen X, I've seen recently, they're taking cell phones out. They're moving away from cell phones. They're having cell phone-less restaurants and bars and stuff like that, which I think is great. I think they've kind of like have just gotten a little bit overrun on the whole idea of it. So it's great, but there is this still certain level of entitlement.
Yes.
That you don't need to defend yourself. If someone is against you on any level, they're wrong, and they must be eliminated, or they must be squashed, or they must be
so
taken out, or they must be, you have to go, you got to leave.
Right.
If you go against me just this much of a fraction, that's a new thing.
Yes.
That's new. That was not a thing when I'm talking about my, growing up and stuff. First of all, I never talked about politics till like, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe. I think 10 years ago, politics became a thing. It was not a thing before that. I guarantee you, I did not give a rat's butt who was actually in there and what was happening. I paid attention to it. I voted what I felt, but nobody came and asked me.
Right.
It was not even a thing. I didn't wear a sticker that said I voted. Give me a freaking break. I never wore a sticker that said I did anything. You know what I mean? It's just like that was not a thing. So, but in today, these poor young, and I say poor because I feel kind of sorry for them, because they're not taught in school certain things. They're taught classes that really are very social justice driven classes that don't service them in the real world.
Right.
So, and if anybody thinks I'm BSing, go to any platform and just search young people going berserk in jobs and offices. And you'll see young people who graduated from college are now in their third year working for an office, weeping, crying that they have to work 40 hours a week just to make money, and they're not surviving. And it's a tragedy, because school, most of the current school, I'm not talking about, there may be certain schools, there may be certain teachers, professors that may really impact you in a positive way. So I'm not talking about individual education, and I'm not even talking about education. I'm talking about the system that's put in there. That type of I won't even use the word that everybody uses. That I'm not going to say the I word, but the system that gets people to be a certain way. That system is new. And it started probably, I would say, probably 25 years ago. It started making a little bit, and now this is why you see people, these young people, they're righteous, they're protesting to places that they can't point on a map. I guarantee you of that. They don't know who's the mayor, who's the president, what ideologies are even at the place that they're protesting. They don't even know that. So this part of it, I think, is, this whole thing of taking the high ground. Well, how can you take the high road if you always feel that someone is always against you and you're always battling? And this is what's happening right now. And
it's part of, when we go back to where did it come from, parents and situations and stuff like that. And I get it, it's tough today. I mean, you're a parent today of young ones right now, right? And you have to parent, but at the same time, you have to deal with the outside influences that they're dealing with that you and I didn't deal with when we were kids. Okay. Yeah. The social medias and all these things, right? Social media alone has impacted society in such a way. it's literally changing generations. Okay.
Yeah.
It literally is. Okay. So now parents have to parent, literally against that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a different way almost.
In a different way. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where we talk about it. Like when I'm lucky that, when my daughter was born, social media was just kind of eking its way around. So she didn't
Yeah.
really have a lot, she got on it later and stuff like that. But the biggest thing was that I wanted to teach her how to handle situations. My biggest thing was, right, because dad handled it very, very differently. There was a lot of alcohol. There was a lot of stuff, and unfortunately, there was a lot of rage. There was, and a lot of that was from the war. And a lot of that's from a lot of different things, okay, that he held on to.
Sure.
Right. And that's how he parented, and where I turned it around, I said, okay, I'm not going to parent that way. If I ever become a,
Yeah, but you had an awareness.
correct.
But
Here's the thing. The same thing, I think about it now, the same thing I did with nutrition, right? And health, right? You get to a point where you're going through such a bad way, you could either stay in that path and get worse, or you can change, or you can change it and go the opposite, right? I did that in health, but I think I also did that in parenting, because now my daughter, who's 19 years old and going to be graduating college this next month, she knows how to handle situations. She handles them in a specific way where if she has to disconnect, she disconnects. If she has to educate, she educates. She knows how to do it now, and she's figuring that out. And to me, it's a product, not just me, because her mother too. It's a product of how we handle situations when she was around, right?
Yeah.
Where I say, again, your kids won't do what you say, but they'll do what you do.
Right.
And you're the example. They're have to be the example. They're listening. When they're in their room and you think they're not hearing, they're hearing everything you say.
They're hearing. Yeah.
Exactly.
My son has amazed me with things like that sometimes.
Yeah. It's incredible what they can hear and what they pick up. And they keep that with them. And then they're saying, okay, how am I going to how did mom and dad handle this issue? Even subconsciously.
Yeah.
They're saying, how did mom and dad handle this situation?
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
It does. And, they do definitely listen. Like my son will be on his tablet sometimes eating in the dining room. He's got his tablet, he's watching a show or something and he's eating and we're talking and he'll be like, yeah, right. And then we'll go and he'll answer. He'll answer the question, like while we're having a conversation over there, he's watching, eating, and then he'll go, yeah, right. And then he'll just he'll comment and I'm like, he's listening. He's able to, he still has that ability, So I think it's important to understand that, I just wanted to read this, here's the truth. Just because something feels right in the moment doesn't mean it is right. Emotions can trick you into making short-term decisions that leave long-term damage.
Yes.
This is road rage.
Yes.
This is not taking the high road. This is egos, right? Which you talked about, right? Taking the high road means you're playing a bigger game. You're choosing self-control over ego,
right?
Growth over reaction. And most people don't have the discipline to do that consistently, which is exactly why it stands out when you do. So consistently is the key word, right? Because nobody's perfect. You're gonna falter. You're gonna make mistakes, but there's always tomorrow. And if you can, if there's 10 opportunities to be a certain way and you've faltered 2, you're still at 80%. Keep working. Keep being consistent. Keep that 80, try to make it 90, and eventually you'll really feel it. But I think that's really a major factor of being able to do that.
And there are those times where you talk about self-control. Because again, when I was younger, I was a little bit of a hothead, right? Blah, blah, blah. But then you get to a point where you're in that situation. Let's say somebody's really getting to you, whatever, and you feel it. It's there. And it goes back to that thing that we talked about. You want to, but you're able to still remain calm and handle the situation. And even if you have to get up and walk away and, take a breath and say, okay, and let it settle, versus just acting on instinct.
Yeah.
and just boom, doing it right there, because you become a slave to that.
You become totally a slave to that. I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
If you're able to stop for a second and at least understand what position you're in at the moment.
Yeah.
Where are you in? Did you just have a fight with your spouse? Did somebody cut you off and pissed you off for whatever reason? What just happened that is bringing you into the state that you're currently in?
Yeah.
And are you going to go out now and confront people in that state? Or are you going to be like, okay, I've had a rough day. I had this happen and this. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to get out there and I'm just going to it's brand new. Right? The future is not what just happened. The future is up to you. You can make it what you want it to be. And then you can, if you have that skill set, which I tell you, it's probably the biggest skill set you can have, is to be able to be in present time and know why you feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many people I've run into, and I can, like almost like an empathic in a way. I can feel that they have so much stuff going on that when I'm talking to this person, I might as well talk to the wall.
Yeah.
They're not getting what I'm saying. They're not. It's not that they're not interested. It's that they're too stuck in what they're thinking about and their situation, and they can't rise above it enough to give me the time, to give me the courtesy of an acknowledgement. They don't have it. Now, I don't hate them for it, because I do have awareness and I do see that they're going through something, and then I try to either help them feel a little bit better, or I realize and I say, okay, great chatting with you, and I go away. Right? What are you going to do? It's just so much you can do at a certain point, right? But I think that's one of the most important things that you can really, really figure out. I'll tell a quick story. When I was about, I want to say 18 years old, maybe 18 or 19 years old. And I've told the story before, and it was kind of emotional. Even now thinking about it, I get a little emotional thinking, but I've talked about it so many times that I don't cry anymore. But I just remember talking to my grandfather once, and I don't have hair anymore, folks, but I used to have gorgeous hair.
Yes, he did.
I had
he did.
Nice
he had the
mop on my
best
head,
hair. Yes.
and I used to comb it. I was so proud of it, and I would go to the,
And he tried to help me with my hair, but
I tried to help George with his. I had no rake strong enough that can get through that thing. It was like, and we tried. We were like two girls trying to.
I remember when John came to my house, he goes, "Okay, we're gonna do it today. We're gonna do it." And then when he tried it, he was like, "What's going on?
What is this? What happened up here?"
Anyway, go ahead.
So I remember I was in the room, and I had just gone through some little traumatic kind of things as a teenager, and homelessness and all that stuff. And my grandparents took me in when I was about 17. So this was maybe like a year later. And I remember I was combing my hair, and my grandfather asked me a question, and I was in a bad, dark place. I was just like I don't know where I was, but I knew I was just miserable. I was like, didn't have money. I didn't have a girlfriend. I didn't have the proper guitars. I loved guitars. I didn't have a good guitar. I was just depressed. And I remember he came in and he asked me something about, and I snapped at him. Now, my grandfather.
Yes.
Is there a nicer man that's ever lived? You know what I mean? The super sweet guy.
Amazing
right?
man. Yeah.
Yeah. And he turned around and he goes, and he just says to my grandmother, he goes, I don't know, he's upset about something. And it broke my heart.
Wow.
Because I heard him say that. It broke, even right now, I still get verklempt, because I remember just thinking, what a jerk I am.
Yeah.
I am such a freaking jerk. Like, how dare I talk to my grandfather that way, who giving me a roof over my head, fed me, took care of me when I was a baby, because my mom, I really was raised by my grandparents primarily until I was about 14, and then I went off and huge things happened, and then I had to come back, crawling back, and they took me back. I mean, the audacity that I had at 18, I'm a piece of shit at 18. I got nothing going for me. You know what I mean? And I have the audacity to snap at the nicest man, the only man that I could ever say is a father to me. You know what I mean? Like, literally, he was my dad. You know, he
Right.
raised me, and I remember just I I stopped, and I'm telling you that at that moment, click, something triggered in me. I don't know what it was, but from that moment on, I was a different man.
Mm.
I went from a boy, a crying, weeping boy that was depressed and felt that the world owed me something, to something because of the way he didn't snap back at me.
Right.
He just turned around and said, and he went, yo no sé, in Spanish, he said, no sé, está enojado de algo, no sé qué le pasa, and my heart broke. I went out there, I apologized. I said, Papi, I'm so sorry. I don't know why. I'm just having a bad day. And I was like crying and stuff, not crying, but I was kind of like, ay, Papi, I'm sorry, perdón, perdón, and I told my grandmother too. And my grandmother was like, but you okay? You quieren café, and I was like, yeah, give me some coffee. And I'm telling you that from that moment on, it was a different. I was respectful. I was super nice. And we had a lot of elders. You and I were lucky in the sense that we weren't just raised by our grandparents and our parents, right?
Right.
We were raised by
With
Titi
a lot of
Lula. We
people.
were raised by
Yep.
Titi Medi.
Yep.
Your grandmother was my grandmother. My grandmother was your grandmother. We
That's
just
true.
all had a lot of role models, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a much better person than I ever was, and that's when I really started playing guitar
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot heavier.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
was
Right.
playing a little bit, but it was that age that really got me. I was like 18, 19, and I think you and I started hanging out when I was about 19, 20 or something. And it was that moment where my life changed. And it was because I was able to catch something, take the high road, and realize I'm an idiot,
Right.
and then just change that around.
It's interesting. I guess I just realized this now, because around, you were 18, 19, whatever. So my dad and I, and the story, but we were estranged for a while. Okay. Because of a lot of stuff that went on with my parents, and I hated my dad for a long time, and we didn't talk for a long time. And, I would, he lived across the street. When I would come visit my grandmother, we just didn't talk. And my dad ended up getting remarried. But my grandfather came up to me one day out of the blue, and he goes, "You need to talk to your father." And I was like,
Holy cow, I didn't know this.
yes, yeah. He goes, and he said it. I'll never forget this conversation, because it was in his bed.
Julio was
Yeah.
a tough dude too.
He was dude. My
was a
grandfather
tough dude.
will throw you out a window. He was such a tough
dude.
man.
Yeah.
But he came to me in his bedroom. I'll never forget this. And he goes, "Come here." I was like, when he come here, I was like, and I was a good kid. I didn't mess with him at all, right? So he brings me here. He goes, "You're not talking to your father, right?" I said, "No, we haven't spoken to him." He goes, "You need to talk to your father." He goes, "I don't care what happened between you." He goes, "But that's your father, and you need to talk to him."
Wow.
And I was like, "Yes, sir. Okay, yeah." And that conversation stayed with me for such a long time, because I was like, so one day after my father was with Pat, his present wife, I went to his house. I went to their house, and there was a fight on, matter of fact. And I just started hanging out with him. And we watched the fight, and he like was a little surprised that I was there, but we just like started talking little by little, talking. And it didn't change the fact of how I felt, from all the years of whatever happened. But like you said, it's something in you that changes, that said, "You know what? I need to get past this. I need to move." And from that point forward, we started playing music. Yeah. You came, we started playing with David, Pat, and that whole thing started. And we used to go to his house all the time to watch fights.
Stuff. I remember. I went a couple of times myself.
And the funny thing is, through all those years, and there was still turmoil even later, before he passed away. But when he passed away, I'll never forget this. In my head, I went to because we buried his ashes, and I cried, which I didn't think I would. Yeah. But I looked at him, and I said, "I forgive you. You know what I'm saying? I forgive
Yeah.
you. Not that I was great either, but
Right.
you know, but for a lot of the things that we went through, and I said I had to say that. I had to
Yeah.
say that
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
myself to get past all that.
Yeah.
And but it's amazing that
Wow.
around that
I didn't
same
know
time,
that. I didn't
yeah,
know that your grandfather did that.
yeah,
That's
he did,
huge.
yeah,
That's huge. You know, old school, man. You know, old school. Just like that's your dad. You know,
right,
that's your dad. You know,
yes,
and you know, your dad needed you.
yeah,
That I think that was more important. Like he needed that music. When we went down and we would be rehearsing
yeah,
and stuff, and he came, he loved it.
he
There's
did,
his son and his friends, and we're playing and singing, and everybody's like, you know, just having a good time during those years. And he really needed that. It was really, I think, now looking back at it, you know, such a bonding
it was,
moment,
it
you know, that
was,
we all had, you know, and maybe at the time, you know, because we're, you know, whatever we were thinking of, you know, you may take it a little bit for granted, you know, but just looking back, I know that we enjoyed ourselves, you know, that he enjoyed it. um, you know, my grandfather was after that moment, you know, I was uh exceptional, you know, when my
mhm,
grandma, not perfect, but good. When my grandma passed, you know, they were in the same nursing home in the Bronx. I went, I got him, I brought him to a nursing home near my house. So I went to go see him every single day. I
yeah,
would go see him
I
every
remember
day,
that,
either in the morning or in the afternoon. He would call me and I would walk over there. It was like that close where I can walk. Not close, close, but you know, it's take
mm,
about 25 minutes or something. But I would walk it on a nice day and see him and spend the whole afternoon with him. And he loved it. You
yeah,
know, he loved it. So I just made sure. Same thing with my grandma. You know, I would go see her every day, and when she was in the Bronx and stuff. And both of them, because they were both in different rooms and stuff. But um, just you know, it just made me realize that this whole conversation that we're having today is so much bigger than what we're even talking about. You know, because we're not talking about driving on the road
right.
and taking the high road that way. We're really talking about self observation, self awareness
That's the
of
key.
where you are, what
Yes,
you're doing.
right.
Can you be a better person? Are you being the best? Are you being allowed to be the best? Maybe someone's not allowing you and you're letting them not let you be the best that you can be,
Yeah,
you know, and you're not communicating honestly with them. Is that happening?
right.
Can you rise above it? Can you see that? That to me is really the main key of this conversation today. Um, and you know, over time, when you do this, you know, it does pay off
Yeah,
because your mind gets quieter. You know, you can sit down and I could have a cup of coffee and I can watch a video of, like, you know, I've been watching a lot of Rush videos lately and stuff, and watching a lot of whatever pops up. I watch mob clips and stuff like that. Mob, I can watch those things, and I could really just watch them.
right.
You know what I mean, and enjoy them, not just have to find something to entertain to get my mind off my problems. If you're, you see
Yeah,
the difference.
yeah, there's a
You see
difference.
the difference?
Yes,
Like, it's not,
100%.
I'm not watching things to distract myself from my life. I love my life, right?
Right.
I'm really enjoying this thing. I want to see Rush, you know, 1987 Presto tour or whatever it was.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want to see it. And I'm like watching it and I'm there and I feel like I am there and I'm enjoying a cup of coffee and I'm watching. That is so precious, more precious than anything you can have. If you can have that ability, it's like gold. And it may be not instant. That's the thing, you know, you may decide to be, you know, rise above it and on one day, and maybe have a couple of rough days and then rise above it again. It's not instant, but and maybe not the way you even expected, but it does happen. And when people see it, it becomes your value.
Yes.
You know, people
Yeah.
want to be around someone that can comfort them,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and just to be around, you
It's
know.
those people that you know, that you want to, like you said, that you want to be around. It's like, it's those people that walk in the room
Yeah.
and you want to be near
Yeah.
them. They
Like
attract
you
those.
want to be able to walk in a room and people say, "Oh, I like this human.
Yes.
I
Right.
like this
Right.
person. This person has no threat to me. I'm going to
Exactly.
laugh with this person. I've had jokes with this person. This person helped me at one point." You want to be able to see, to have that. You know,
Right.
if you're walking in a room and half the people are sighing because you're there,
Yeah.
man,
That's a problem. Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
a major problem. And the sad part is you might not even know they're doing it because
No.
you don't have self-awareness enough to know. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, I
And
mean, you know,
what I would say is, you know, for folks out there, you know, even if you're older, right?
imagine people
We're in our,
hate us.
we're in a, what? What did
I
you
said,
say?
imagine people hate us.
People don't like your voice.
Yes. One person said, I have a whiny voice.
You have a whiny voice now.
Yeah,
I
guy, I gotta
always
get out of
knew he
here.
had a whiny voice. No, but it's that, even, you know, even if you're in your 50s like we are, right? You're still a work in progress.
Always.
You know, always look at it the way, this is the way I look at
Done.
it. I talk to people about it all the time. I say, I'm always working on myself.
Yeah.
I always want to learn. I always want to learn how to get better, how to handle situations
Sure.
better, how to handle people better, and all these things. You know, I'm a work in because, you know, and that drives me. That actually
Yeah.
makes me happy if I can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting better at this." It's like, you go back to Wayne Dyer, who's
Yeah.
incredible at these concepts,
Yeah.
where he says, you know, I may not be as good as I want to be, but I'm better than I used to be.
Correct.
You know, and it's just a beautifully said.
Yeah.
And if you can kind of, you know, come from it in that direction, then you're, you know, and have that awareness.
Yeah.
And when you're angry, or when you feel that anger, and you can have that awareness and step away and look at yourself and say, hey, I can control this situation,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, it makes a huge difference.
And who's done?
Mm.
Right? We're all work in progress. I mean, who can
That,
you
right,
point to
exactly.
someone that's
Who's like,
done?
okay, I'm done. That's it. But
I'm
there are
done.
people that act like
Oh.
but that's the problem, is that there are people that are so stuck that they cannot get past it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a frightening, scary place to even think of that anybody can get to. But you know, it is a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, and just finally to read here, it says, you know, that what I was saying before was, you know, people may not see it right away, you know, but opportunities will come from it when you're able to do that. More importantly, you can look at yourself and know you handled things with integrity. That matters. So even when it feels uncomfortable, even when it feels unfair, stick with it. The high road isn't about winning the moment, it's about winning your life, because that's what we're talking about here. It's not about being right today on whether this is a black or a white jacket. You know, it's about the long game. You know, it's about playing the long game and living it with integrity. And when you have that self-awareness to know I'm wrong or I'm right, but I don't want to go get into it with them.
Right.
That is both equally valuable.
Yes.
You know, it's equally valuable. And I think that that's where this conversation really, you know, today, it was interesting. We both told like personal stories of growing up as kids and stuff. And I think, you know, as we get older, you know, we start having more cognitions on that.
Yeah.
You know, on conversations that we had. Oh, you know, I remember this thing. You know, like I talk about when, you know, your uncle, my cousin, John, when he bought me my first record, Baby Come Back by Player. And that's a moment that's burnt in my mind. As a matter of fact, recently I bought a 45 off of eBay.
Nice.
For an original 45 from Baby Come Back, and it was in mint condition and stuff. I paid anyway. So I have it, and I took a picture of it and I sent it to John.
Did you?
Yeah, I said, "Hey, John, I don't know if you remember this, but you bought this." And he was like, "Wow, that's amazing." He said, "Thank you for sharing that," because it was such a huge moment for me. But
Right.
these moments don't stop happening.
Right.
Just because we're older does not mean that I don't have special moments with individuals. It's just that the workaday world gets into it. We have everybody's, so they have so many present time problems that they're trying to balance out, and they have so many things that they're trying to handle that they lose sight of the moments. Like right now, you and I are having this moment in time, this conversation right now. This is now. This didn't happen before. It's not going to happen in the future. It's right now. We're having this conversation about this. You spoke personally about your father. I spoke personally about my grandfather, and those two special moments are there documented now. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So my advice to anyone that's, maybe you're thinking, oh, maybe I need to start looking a little bit deeper at the conversations I'm having with people that I care about, or even with caring about myself more, being more in present time with myself, being with my thoughts. If you're really thinking about that, think about the long game. Don't think that you're going to wake up tomorrow with it.
That's right.
And it's going to be done. Think about the investment that you have to put in to yourself, because once you put in that investment in yourself, it's going to pay off in so many ways to so many people around you. It's mind-boggling, but you have to make that decision. And I did a whole show on this once. Decision. The decision is key. And the decision isn't this dramatic thing where people go on the top of a mountain and they say, I'm gonna do it. No, that's January 1st. I'm gonna join the gym. I'm gonna lose weight this year. That's fine. Some people do it. Most don't, but a lot of people do. No, this is a decision that you're gonna make on April 26th, 2026, and you're just gonna say, okay. That's as quiet as it can get. You don't even have to say a word. You can just be like, and the next move will be you.
That's
the
it.
next would be really you.
Yeah.
So I hope people don't hate me. Was that out loud?
Don't hate me because I'm beautiful.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all so much. As always, being here and having these conversations. I want to thank people that have tuned in. Bro, Charlie Lewis Jr., thank you for your comments and everything. Over here on TikTok, we got a lot of people here. Thank you I know some of the comments here, I couldn't get to all these comments, but I appreciate what do you mean my voice is? No, I'm just kidding.
Shorty.
How do you know I'm the same size as everyone on your phone? But thank you, everybody. Thank you, George, as always. It's a pleasure. And we will see you all next week. I will see you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Central for my morning show. And George, of course, will always see you on Wellness Talk. You can check him out with all his amazing knowledge there. And we're going to be doing some stuff together now yeah.
Well, it's going to be coming. Remember, Wellness Talk is right before this show. That's when it goes out live. So
yeah. So you're gonna see some interesting things happening in the next few weeks. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So, all right, friends, take care of yourselves. God bless you all. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And as always, peace.